Okay, it looks like we are on. Hi, my name's Doug Green, and I'm doing a hangout with my friend Giuseppe Frattoni. I hope I said that right. He lives in Italy, and he is a podcast expert. And we're going to be talking about podcasting today for small business. And this is really going to be like an introductory hangout, introductory interview where if you have a small business and you want to extend your social reach, you're probably already using Facebook and maybe LinkedIn and all those other social networks. That being said, podcasting is, and I keep hearing this over and over from different information marketers, podcasting is having something of a resurgence. And if you do this right, it can really be something that you can use in your social marketing workflow to find new customers, build your brand, reach out. So that's what we'll be covering today. So Giuseppe, I've got a little bit of information about him here. He lives in Italy. You'll love his accent. He's a digital marketing consultant and business coach, and he's on a mission to help small businesses find their audience and grow fast. And he's also the host of GPF Chat Podcast. You can check it out. You'll see the URL on his lower third when he speaks, but it's GPF, like Greg, Paul, Frank, chat.com. And so we'll dive in. First of all, thank you for joining us, Giuseppe.
Hello, Doug. Thanks for having me, and thanks for calling me a podcast expert.
You bet. I've got a couple computers. So by the way, we're using Google Hangout technology, and there may be a few hiccups along the way, but it's a really good way another good way besides podcasting to reach your audience. Anyway, go ahead, Giuseppe. Maybe you can tell us, give us some context here. Why is podcasting important to small businesses, and what's sort of the overall landscape so people can get a feel, kind of get the 50,000-foot view, or I guess in Italy it'd be the 50,000-meter view, right, or the 20,000-meter view of the lay of the land, so they can see as we dive in where all the different pieces fit.
Of course, I would start by saying that podcasting is a very hot topic these days. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and all the superstars in the internet marketing and social media space have their own podcasts. And the reasons, I think that probably the most important one is that podcasting is a fantastic content marketing instrument, content marketing tool, and it's easy to create. It's not very difficult to create a podcast compared to, for example, making videos, or even to writing blog posts. In my opinion, it's a lot easier to open up a recording app and talk for a couple of minutes and have great content that then you can share and repurpose all over the internet, on your social media profiles and everything. And another reason why podcasting is so effective as a content marketing tool is that when people subscribe to your podcast, they automatically get your new episodes. So you don't have to send out emails or a newsletter to let them know that there is a new episode available, because they just get it inside their player. And by the way, podcasts is not only for Apple people, because not only for iTunes, there are other platforms available, and the most important one is Stitcher Radio. And in fact, my podcast is available on both. So these are the main reason, in my opinion.
So let's back up a little bit too. So podcasts are audio. It's audio content only. It's something that you create, and then you can get it, like, obviously, I think the most popular way, of course, is iTunes. But there's also an Android platform. You can consume it on your computer, your smartphone, your tablet. If you've got the car with a hookup, you could listen to it on your way to work. So it's this audio-only content creation basis. Maybe you can give us a little bit more of kind of what it is too. Just so people understand the pieces in this. Kind of give us that upper view. That would be great.
Yes, of course. And I would like to share my screen, so I have a few slides ready for you and your viewers.
Great.
And you hopefully are now.
I see that one. How to create your podcast. I'm gonna blue box you so that when I talk, it stays on your screen. There we go.
So, and we already talked a bit about this, but just to say a few more things about this topic. So, why podcasting? Well, podcasting mainly because it's a fantastic content marketing medium. And by the way, with content marketing, I think a lot of people already know this, but content marketing is the creation of free pieces of content that provide useful information to your audience with the goal of positioning yourself as an authority in your field. And when you're able to do this, this is extremely beneficial if you're doing business, especially if you're doing the business online, because you will show up in Google's search result when people make a search that is related to what you do, to what your business does for your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why
the big question why.
the reason why it is a great marketing tool. The first one is that people love podcasts, and according to I don't have the latest stats about this, but according to Apple, subscriptions of podcasts through iTunes reached 1 billion in 2013. So there is an audience out there that's waiting for your next podcast. The other reason is that podcasts are very easy to produce, much easier than video and blogging, as I said before, because you really don't need a lot of equipment. And at the very least, a decent laptop is all you need to get started. A laptop with a built-in microphone is what you need to create a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The other reason is that podcasts are very easy to consume because people can listen to podcasts everywhere. This is, in my opinion, the biggest difference with video and even for blogging. Because if you do video marketing, which is great, people are supposed to watch the screen, and even if it's on a mobile, they have to watch the display on their mobile phone. And whereas with podcasts, you can go out for a walk, you can go at the gym, and still consume that content. And there is another reason that's more on a psychological side, that podcasts create a very close relationship with your listeners, with your subscribers, because you have this thing that your voice goes through their ears, and I think it's very much like the difference between radio and TV. And so lots of reasons why podcasts are so popular and so effective. So back to your last question, how podcasting works.
Yeah, well, let's get into the nitty-gritty. For those of you that are what learners and kind of need to see the details, here's where we're going to dive into that.
Okay, let's say that setting up a podcast is not rocket science, it's not very difficult, but you have to have a few things in place. You have to do a little bit of setup. But once you've done this the first time, it almost goes on autopilot, so to speak. So how this works? Well, podcasting is about creating an audio file in an MP3 format. You upload this audio file on a web server, and then it's automatically available to your subscribers via a technical thing that's called podcast feed that we'll talk about later. Let's say what we're gonna do when we want to set up a show. So let's say that you want to start a podcast, and of course, you have to make a decision about a few things. First of all, the subject that you want to talk about during your podcast. It can be, for example, in my case, is marketing, entrepreneurship, and social media. And establish a format. There are two very popular formats. One is the one that I call the one-man show, where it's just you talking about a topic, or the interview-based podcast. That is the one that I am using. And I think that interviews are very effective because you get a lot of exposure, because the guest will bring in his audience, and it's easier to create the content because the actual content creation is on the guest's side. You only have to ask questions.
Which is sort of like what we're doing right now. We're creating content through this interviewing process.
Exactly the same. And then you want to establish a publishing schedule, weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, or daily podcast. There are daily podcasts out there. And then, of course, everything that you need to identify your show: a title, the host name, which is you, of course. Description is very important, and USP stands for unique selling proposition, which is a reason for people to listen to your podcast in the first place and then become a subscriber. This is important because the description, if you make your description keyword rich, it's important to make your podcast searchable inside podcast directories like iTunes, where they have a search feature.
So there's a question about this unique selling point I have.
Yeah.
You know, some of us may have a little bit of a problem trying to narrow down our say what we are. Like, I'm only this. If we get too broad based, I mean, it's something that becomes a problem in marketing too. The less people understand who you are, what's that saying? The more clearly you can state who you are and what you do, the more people, and who you do it for, the more people will seek you out. And in podcasting, it sounds like the more unique you can make your podcast and just dial in on that, the more successful it will be. But can you get locked into being too unique, or I don't know. I guess I'm just having a resistance to trying to be too unique, and that's going to be a problem for me, and maybe for others. And maybe you can address that. The people that really dive in deep on one unique selling point or one niche tend to have a lot more success than those that don't in podcasting?
Well, I think that you have to pick your niche based on your interests and on your business, and it's based on what you do. There are I don't know, but billions probably of podcasts about marketing and entrepreneurship and social media. But when it comes to being unique, I think that we're all unique, because we as human beings are unique. So it's our voice, our unique perspective, in our unique approach to the topic that we address, or to the interviews, that I think it's enough to make us unique in a sense. And then, of course, you don't want to be too rigid about this. Of course, you can change things as you go and fine-tune your way of creating the show, maybe based on the feedback that you get from your audience.
Yeah, that brings up a really key. I kind of want to. I want to keep moving, but I did want to bring this point up because, like, I for one have a wide range of interests, and unfortunately that can work against me in choosing a topic, because then I feel like I'm losing options. But the fact is that the more specific you can make your focus, the more successful you're going to be. So if you can rise above the noise, because as Giuseppe said, there are billions, it sounds like, of at least hundreds and hundreds of millions of podcasts out there. And for you to rise above that noise, you're really going to have to find that unique selling point, that thing that is the essence of you, or that thing that says, this is what I speak about. So people get it really, really easily and really fast. And what was the other? Oh, and then also what he said about fine-tuning. There's that saying that one step in the wrong direction is better than 100 years of thinking about it. You can always course correct. So always be, know that you can. I think there's a saying, you fail forward. You might make some mistakes on what your uniqueness is, but you'll get feedback by the number of viewers you have, or the number of listeners, and all of that. So it's better to be moving forward, maybe off course, than to sit there thinking about what exactly am I going to do. So the market can tell you how you can fine-tune it. Anyway, sorry, I didn't want to belabor that, except that that's something that's especially personal to me. And take it away, Giuseppe.
Okay, so let's go on with our little presentation here. And okay, talking about setup, the artwork. This is may seem not very important, but I think it is because for me, for example, a very good-looking, attractive, eye-catching artwork is definitely something that makes me want to try a new podcast. And so this is something that you want to consider. Another thing that is very useful, and here I wrote optional but highly recommended, is to have a nice intro and outro for your show. And this is important because it creates a more professional look about your show, and also we talked about this later. It gives you the opportunity to insert your call to action at the end or at the beginning of your show, as you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, this is everything about the setup thing. And so, you have any questions? Will I just go on with my presentation?
No, keep going. I get excited about equipment. I like bright, shiny objects, and I know that equipment's important. And in fact, the audio quality is especially. I do a lot of video, and one thing I know is that you can get away with, video that's maybe not perfect as long as the audio is good. But it's like but if the audio is not good, even good video is not going to save it, because the audio part is so important. So I'm looking forward to this part about equipment. Go ahead.
Equipment. Of course, you need something in place to create your show. And here I want to give you, excuse me, a bit of warning, because when we talk about equipment, things can really get as complicated and expensive as you want it to be. So the first thing that I will say, and I'm totally with you with the fact that bad audio quality is something that people really can't stand, and it's really hard to listen to a podcast or even to a video that doesn't have a nice audio quality. But you don't have to spend a fortune to set up your show from a technical standpoint. So don't let this tech stuff hold you back from starting out. Just get started, and you can always improve and refine it as you go.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see what you recommend in microphones, or do you have a specific recommendation? There we go. Microphone.
Yes. Okay. First thing, I think that there is a difference in the basic equipment that you need based on the format of your show. Because if it's a one-man show, meaning it's only you speaking, you need a microphone, of course, and an audio recording software. Now, for microphone, I personally use this equipment that I'm using right now to talk with you. This is a Logitech wireless headset. It's an H800, and I also use a Samsung Meteor microphone. And they're both around $60 right now. So really not very expensive stuff. And for audio recording software, there are several options out there. I personally use, and this may sound strange, ScreenFlow, which is a video recording software. And I am on a Mac, and I also have GarageBand, which is an app for recording on a Mac. But I find it to be too complex. It has too many options for me. So I just use ScreenFlow, which is very basic because, again, it's essentially a video editing tool, but you can use it to edit your audio files as well.
Mm-hmm.
For people on PC, a very popular option is Camtasia Studio, and there is all, and these are all paid software. You have to pay for these things, but there is another option which is free. That is Audacity. A lot of people use it. I have never tried it, but it's something that you can definitely try if you don't want to invest in an audio recording software.
Yeah, I will say I have both Camtasia and Audacity, and I use both. Camtasia Studio is, for those of you on PCs, it's really the only good alternative, like something like ScreenFlow. It actually lets you do screen captures and video editing and audio editing, and it actually has some pretty good audio tools in it for equalizing your audio, cutting things out, and doing fade-ins and fade-outs. Really powerful program. It's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of video and even some audio editing. Audacity, I believe you can get it at audacity.com. Just search it on Google and you'll find the exact website. But it's a very powerful program. It's shareware, and it's constantly updated. So there's a lot of plugins that are unique to it, and it is it's an amazing program, especially for free. Sorry, go ahead, Giuseppe.
Yeah, then can I ask you a question? Is it difficult to use it, Audacity? I mean,
I would say that the basics, no, and you can just Google on YouTube, and you can find so many. In fact, I think I found there's some guy that actually shows you a plugin he uses with Audacity to make your voice sound better. He's got a whole thing about how to use Audacity, and it's pretty simple. I mean, if you can follow instructions and you're halfway techie at all, you can do it. I would say that learning to use Camtasia, with all of its features, is probably more difficult initially. So I would look at it. I think Audacity is a really good alternative. Oh, also one other thing I wanted to say, a mic I happen to recommend is this one right here. This is the Blue Yeti.
Yeah.
This is my go-to mic. The thing looks like R2-D2, right, from Star Wars. And but what I like about it is I found that on my PC that sometimes most of the USB microphones I get don't put out enough volume, so to speak. And this thing has a gain control on it right here. No, this one, that's the button, which is really nice. It lets me dial up the volume, and I've constantly had that problem with Windows 7. But this microphone bypasses that, and as you can see, it sounds pretty good. So, and it's about $100 on Amazon, so that's a great investment. Anyway, take it away, Giuseppe.
Yes, and another thing that I wanted to add about microphone: be careful when you choose a microphone and take in consideration the environment where you're going to use it. So for example, as I said, I have a USB microphone. It's not the Blue Yeti, but is a Samsung Meteor, which is a bit lower quality, but it works equally well in my opinion. But when I do interviews and hangouts like I'm doing now, I use this headset because the Meteor, the Samsung Meteor, and I think also the Blue Yeti are too sensitive, and I am working in a pretty noisy environment, and this kind of microphone, this little built-in microphone that I have on my headset, is less sensitive, so I can avoid noises to be picked up by the microphone itself. So this is something to think about when you're choosing a microphone, in my experience. And background noises is something that I've really struggled with.
Okay. So let's continue with your presentation. This is great.
Okay, so we've talked about the one-man show, and let's talk about interviews, which is what I do in my podcast. Of course, here again, you need a microphone, and you need a way to record both your audio and the guest's audio. And one of the best tools available is Skype, which is free. But to record Skype calls, you need a software. There are a couple of options available. Again, I am on a Mac, and I use a Skype call recording software that's called Ecamm Call Recorder. It's around $30. I know that there are options for Windows too.
Yeah, actually, one I use there's one I'll just say that I use called Replay Telecorder for Skype. I'll put a link in with this at the end of this so that you can see that. But it's a really good one for recording both the audio and the video on a Skype call, and it'll, you can merge it all into one file or have both sides separately. So, which is really nice. You want to have the audio on 2 tracks if you can. Yeah. So because there's likely to be big differences between each, so you can edit one soundtrack and then the other without like mashing it all together.
Okay, and by the way, I just wanted to add that at the end of our conversation, I have a little free gift for your listeners. It's a short PDF with a few of the tools that I use to create my podcast, which can be, I think, interesting for people who are watching this.
Awesome.
And okay, you can use Skype or software that allows you to record your Skype calls, but you can do another thing, that is using Google Hangouts. Because with Google Hangouts, Hangouts on Air, you can have a private Hangout on Air where it's only you and your guests and nobody else can watch it, and you do your Hangout, you record the audio, and then download the video that's automatically created on YouTube, on your YouTube channel, and extract the audio track from that video. And this is a totally free option. Google Hangouts can be a little tricky at first, but it's something that that everybody can do, and again, is a completely free option for recording interviews.
And just to remind everybody, that's what we're using right now. We're on a Google Hangout, so.
Oh yeah, of course, it's what we're using. We could be doing a private Google Hangout on there, and which is not publicly broadcast, and use the audio of the recorded video on to create a podcast episode, basically.
Yep. Okay, let's keep moving. Like
okay,
the slides, by the way.
Yeah, going forward, I keep switching between, and this can be annoying. Sorry for that. Okay, editing. This depends on the work that you do, but I think that your audio file needs a little bit of makeup before you click publish. And at the very minimum, you want to add a cool intro, like some music with a voiceover, which is a very popular way of introducing the show, and a nice outro. And typically, the final part where you maybe put some music with your voiceover is where you create your call to action. And this is something that's very important, because again, when you create a podcast, what you want to do is to use it as a content marketing media. So you want to drive people basically to your website, because it's important to have subscribers on YouTube, subscribers on Stitcher Radio, subscribers on YouTube, and followers and everything. But one of the key thing that you want to have in mind when you do anything, any content marketing effort, is to use what you do on those platforms to drive people to your website. because your website is your home base, is where you make money basically. So this is the final goal of everything that you do with your content marketing strategy. And the intro of your show and the outro, the final part of your show, is the perfect place to put your little call to actions, like go on my website and register for future episodes, or maybe you can add little bonuses, like if people subscribe to your website, you give them the transcriptions on of your shows, or maybe a little action plan to implement based on what you've talked about during the show, things like that. So think about it, because it's very important to use the relationship that you've created with your show to create a benefit for your business, for what you do.
And just
oh, sorry.
I was going to say, keep it on your screen. I don't need to be seen, or I can show up right here. This is really what he said is so important. What Giuseppe said about building the list, because really the only way that you can consistently stay in touch with audience building is by building your email list. That's your goal. That's the goal. That should be your overall goal on all of this, to get people on your list and then start building that relationship with them. And this whole podcasting is one way to do that. That would be one of the pillars to driving people to signing up on your list. Take it away, Giuseppe.
Yes, back to editing. Another thing that's important is to balance audio levels between speakers, if you are interviewing other people, and music, and then and your voice, if you have a musical jingle at the beginning. You don't want to have different audio levels for those different sources, because it's very annoying. Especially imagine somebody who's maybe running or working out or driving and listening to your podcast in their car, having this volume that continually raises and then lowers. It can be very disturbing. So using tools to level up the audio is very important. For editing, again, all the software that we mentioned earlier can help you with your editing. So again, ScreenFlow for Mac, Camtasia and Audacity, Camtasia for PC and Audacity for both. And if you want to make your audio better, you can use the features in the audio editing tools. But there are a couple of tools that are really specific. The one that I use is called Auphonic, and it's a website basically where you have to register. You upload your MP3, and it gets processed by a very complex algorithm that does a lot of things. And after, let's say, half an hour, it's ready, and you can download it, and it's all leveled, and the audio is very it's a lot better and balanced and everything. Another, this is a paid service. It's not very expensive. You can check it out on their website. And another one is called Levelator. This is a software that you have to download on your computer, and you can use it for free. It's a free software.
Cool.
Okay, let's talk a bit about tagging. And okay, tagging is something that is adding a tag, and it's something that you've seen if you've ever downloaded a song from iTunes. Is where you play a song that you've downloaded. You see the artist's name, the song's title, the album artwork, and everything. And this little magic is accomplished by tagging the audio file. Tagging is simply adding additional information inside your audio file that is very important, because this information is readable by not only by the players, I mean your iPod or your or whatever, but it's used by podcast directories to show information about your show.
So this is kind of like your signpost out. So, you know, if you brought this into the brick and mortar world, it would be like your signpost up on your store that says the name of it, and maybe what you sell, and how people will find you. So
yes, of course, you can add a lot of information. There are some fields that are, of course, more important than others. But then at the end, you can add basically a description of the show, and you don't have to just put, I mean, what the show is about in the description. You can put a call to action. You can give your address or everything that's useful for you and for your business. And so again, before you upload your MP3 file, your audio file on your hosting server, you need to include this additional data. And it looks like a very complex thing to do, but to tag your audio file, you can use a very popular software that is iTunes. I mean, the desktop application of iTunes, which is available for all platforms. And it is very easy to tag files using iTunes. All you have to do is to click on the file, and there is a menu where you can edit the information of the file, and all you have to do is to fill all the fields that pop up on the screen. It's really very, very easy.
Now, just to be clear, this only tags it for the Apple software, right? For within iTunes. If you wanted to tag it for other ways that it's viewed.
No, you tag the file anyway. Then whether you use it on only on iTunes or in iTunes or in Stitcher Radio, the tagging works just in the same way. I was the iTunes software is my personal suggestion as the tool to do this kind of tagging. There are other software for tagging that are, in my opinion, are more complex and less user friendly. And this is the one that I always mention when it comes to tagging, because it's software that a lot of people already have installed in their computers. So it's something that you don't have to download other things and learn how to use them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So you just use iTunes once, tag it once, and then it's good to go for every place you submit it.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so far we've seen the show setup, the recording of your podcast episode, the editing, the tagging, and at this point your MP3 file is ready. It's ready for what? It's ready for hosting, because you have to upload this file somewhere on the internet to make it available, so that people who subscribe to your podcast or that just want to listen to one episode, because there's no need to subscribe to listen to an episode, can have access to it.
Okay.
So you upload this file on a web server, and just like it happens with any website. The best advice that I can give you here is to not use your website's hosting, because there may be bandwidth issues, especially if your podcast is very popular. You get a lot of downloads. All those people who try to download the podcast can really create issues with your web hosting, and it may also be against a lot of web hosting terms of services. There are services that are dedicated to podcast hosting, and the one that I use is called Libsyn.com. I'm not getting paid for mentioning them. It's just one of the best podcast hosting platform available, and I would say that all the podcast superstars out there use Libsyn, and it's a very user-friendly platform, and it's also very affordable. It's not very expensive.
Cool.
Okay, now your little MP3 file is hosted, meaning that it's uploaded on a web server. And now there is a little tricky thing that you have to do, is to create the podcast feed. This is something that sometimes can be a bit confusing for people, but it's not very difficult, so don't worry. So just to put it very in a simple way, a feed is just a data format that is used for providing people with a frequently updated content. We are used to, for example, feed from blogs. Sometimes when we subscribe to a blog, we receive the updates via a feed, and it's just a data format that allows the new content, the content that is created, to be distributed to people who subscribed, in this case, to the show. And it's not very difficult. You don't have to understand all the technical aspects of creating a podcast feed. The important thing that you have to do is to basically follow the instructions on your podcast hosting provider. As I said, I use Libsyn, and it's very simple. All you have to do is to go to the setup page inside their website and fill a form with information about your show.
Okay, so this is, you use Libsyn. Libsyn handles all of that for you. Cool.
Yes, you just have to put your show name, your host name, the description of the show inside a form, and then click OK, and you're done, and you get a feed URL that is like a web address, like the www. something, and that is the podcast feed. And this is important because now you finish basically the production and the setup stage, and all you have to do is to submit your show to podcast directories. And this is very, very easy, because all you have to do is to create an account, and here I am mentioning only the two most important, but really this is where you want your podcast to be. I don't think that you have to worry with other platforms, except maybe SoundCloud, that I'm not using at the time, to be honest. So you have to create this account if you don't have one already, with iTunes and Stitcher Radio, and you will get to a page where you have to provide your podcast feed, and at this point you're done. Your podcast is created, and from this moment on, every time you create a new episode, all you have to do is to upload the MP3 file on your podcast hosting platform, Libsyn, as in my case, and publish the episode. So you don't have to recreate the feed. You just do that once, and then every time you want to publish a new episode, you just upload the MP3 file and create. It's just like creating a blog post on a WordPress blog, if you know what I mean. And you just
so I like this because it's a set it and forget it. And for people that may be overwhelmed by the tech of doing that, which it sounds like this might be sort of the crux move, or in climbing they call it. There's like one part that's the most difficult of all on a climb. You can always hire somebody at a place like Fiverr to do this for you, and get you set up for like $5, or you may have a techie friend that can help you get through that. And once that's set up, once that piece of that part he was talking about in Libsyn, where you go through and make it so that new podcasts get seen, once you've done all that once, from there on out, you don't have to go back and do that again. Correct?
No, absolutely. You just create this all this setup the first time, and that is when you upload your first episode, basically. And then for the other episodes, you just create the file, tag the file, upload it, because the tagging, you have to tag the file for every episode. That is and then you just publish it.
Okay. Is there anything you want to cover beyond there? I kind of have a question I'd like to. I know we hadn't talked about doing this question, but it's one I'd be fun to throw by you. But why don't you finish up with whatever you have first?
Oh, no. There's no particular thing that I want to talk about. So, okay, go on.
I'm new, right? I've never done a podcast before. I can kind of see. I know that I can get help on YouTube with some of this, and I know that you've got something you're going to let people have at the end of this that also helps them. But I'm starting out. What's the first thing I should do? Like, what topic should I cover? What kind of shows do people like to listen to? How can I kind of lean into this without freaking out and getting overwhelmed? Just kind of go inside the head of the person that's doing this for the first time, like, oh my God, you just went through 10 steps and there's this and that and that, and you got editing and crap and da-da-da-da. But, it's the first step, just leaning into this. How would you, what would you suggest?
Okay, the first step is just take a deep breath, count 1, 2, 3, and then go, because this is the only way to get things done, really. And for example, in your case, you could do what I have done, because you're doing video interviews, and you could take the audio from those interviews and use those audio files as podcast episodes. And this is exactly the process that I have used to create my podcast, because I had this idea of creating my podcast. I had this stored inside of my. I have an Evernote account where I write down every idea that I get about new projects and stuff like that. But I really never find the courage to get started, because for these things that look very complex and technical, we tend to always wait to have our desk completely empty, to have a whole week where we have nothing else to do, where we can think of creating our podcast. And but of course this never happens. You always have other things to do. And so I wanted to create a podcast, but it just didn't get started for a long time. Then I started to do interviews, but they were video interviews at first. I was only doing video interviews, and I put the video on my blog, and I wrote a blog post around the interviews. And then one day I just had this idea that popped inside my mind. I have this great content. Why don't I take the audio tracks from those interviews, from those video interviews, and use them as podcast episodes? And this is exactly what I did. And then I spent really not a long time, probably, let's say a week, studying, browsing around, reading books, and I want to give credit to famous podcasters that really helped me a lot with their blogs, with their books, which are Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income and John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire. And reading their documentation, their blog posts, I got a book from John Lee Dumas, which was great, and I really got to understand the basic elements of podcasting, which again, it's not rocket science. It takes a little of commitment, of course, like anything else when you just start out It's you have this mountain that you have to climb. But if you don't get started, you will never get on the top. So I would say just start. You have, I mean, in your case, I will tomorrow, or maybe this it's morning for you in California. Here it's dark. It's almost it's 7:30 p.m. So for you, it's you are in the morning, so you have the whole day to start editing your video interviews and extract the audio part and create a podcast episode around them.
Something else I wanted to touch on, which I think, which you said, which is really important too. I wanted to highlight this. When you do see the system here that you could develop for creating content, we're doing a video interview now. So this video will appear on YouTube, and I'll have it on my website. But I can also pull out the audio. And now I've got a podcast, so I have the video plus the audio, and if I wanted to, I could even transcribe that audio. There are services online, I don't know any off, I know there's several, where you can get audio transcribed pretty deeply. They just need to get the audio file, and then, you know, somebody's typing away on it, and then you've got text. So you've got 3 different types of content coming from a video interview. You have the video, you have the audio, and then you have something that you could massage into a story or a number of blog posts. And you could even structure your interviews so that, like, say, what are the top 10 questions people have about something? And then you could answer each question independent, you know, it's sort of a standalone chunk. So you could either have this as one big video or one big audio, or you could break it up into smaller ones, especially the videos. I think my understanding is that podcasts generally tend to be pretty long, right? Somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour. That's a question.
yeah. Of course, repurposing your content is absolutely crucial for everybody who's doing content marketing, because creating an original piece of content takes time. Of course, like for an interview, or also if you do a podcast where it's only you speaking, but then you can take that content and really repurpose it in dozens of different ways. You can, for example, have the audio transcribed, and there are people, for example, on Fiverr, which is an outsourcing site, that for $5 transcribe up to 15 minutes of audio. So for $10 you can have a half an hour of audio transcribed, and you then just take those transcriptions and put them in your blog, and you have a blog post. And you can extract 20 or maybe 30 tweets or status updates for Facebook, or posts inside Google Plus from an interview. I continue referring to interviews because it's what I do. Or you can, for example, for one of my episodes, I've tried this strategy. I had only the audio file at that time because I don't remember if we had issues with the video cameras. But nonetheless, I've uploaded on YouTube, because all my interviews are now done in Google Hangouts. Mm-hmm. So I have a video that gets automatically uploaded on my YouTube channel. Then I take the audio and create the podcast. But that time around, I didn't have the video, so I created basically a video with just a little graphic that I put all along the duration of the audio. And it's not a very exciting video to watch, but it's on YouTube. So if somebody that doesn't is subscribed to my YouTube channel, but maybe is not a podcast listener, still is getting the content. And then I write blog posts around my interviews, and I create tweets and create quotes that are tweetable with just one click on my website, and you can create a presentation. And then this is actually one of my sort of a like a little insider news. I'm experimenting with SlideShare, with creating presentation based on my podcast episodes that I will upload to SlideShare, which is a very popular website, and more than a website, it's a real social platform where people can upload presentations. It's very popular, and I'm playing a little bit with graphics, and so I will start using this other channel to repurpose my content. So there's really no limit to what you can do.
Just content all over the place.
Yes, of course. The important thing is to present your content in a way that's appropriate to the audience, based on where you are repurposing. I mean, a tweet is different from a post on Google+. You have only 140 characters on Twitter. On Google+, you can write what you want.
Yeah. All right. I understand you've got something that people can download. And for more information, maybe as we're winding this up, what would you like to leave people with?
This is a little gift for your viewers, for your people. This URL, gpf.me/DougPDF, and you can get a short PDF. It's just two pages with a list of all the tools. Some of them I've mentioned during our conversation. Some other probably not. And it's something that's cool and handy to have. And another thing, if you want to check out my podcast, you can find it both on iTunes at gpfchat.com/iTunes, and on Stitcher Radio at gpfchat.com/Stitcher. And my home base on the web, if you want to learn more about me and connect with me, is my website, which is gpfratoni.com, gpfratoni.com.
That's like George Paul Frank. Tony.
Yeah.
Tony. George. Yeah. I'm sorry. George Paul Fratoni. All right. Well, thank you very much, Giuseppe. Appreciate your spending time with us and getting us informed on getting started into podcasting. For those of you that have small businesses, and especially those of you that are in services or some sort of area of expertise where it's your expertise that you're selling, really look hard at using podcasting as a way to expand your reach and to bring in new customers and build brand loyalty and all of that.
Yeah,
that's it.
Definitely. And well, thank you very much for having me on your show, Doug. It's been absolute pleasure. And I wanted to add that if somebody needs any kind of help, just you can maybe they can post a question in the comments of the event or on YouTube, or no problem. I'll be happy to help to see more podcasts out there starting from tomorrow or from this evening, like for you.
Today.
Why not?
Why not? I can mix it in with my video editing. All right, Giuseppe, thank you very much. And thanks again, everybody, for viewing this. And if you have any questions you heard, just stick them down there and below the video, whether you're on YouTube or the events page or wherever else. All right, over and out.